Good evening, everyone. I have the pleasure of introducing Becky Kallal, who has shared her knowledge and expertise about school councils with our district for many years. We're so lucky to have her here again this evening to join us with all her knowledge. For those who do not know her, Becky Kallal was a junior high, senior high social studies teacher, worked at Alberta Education, served 2 terms as a trustee with Edmonton Catholic Schools, and is currently an ASCA workshop instructor. She's been a professional editor for over 25 years. Becky came to ASCA with a wealth of experience in education and adult learning. She has taught courses including parliamentary procedures, effective meetings, agenda setting, and minute-taking skills. Becky serves on a variety of volunteer boards. We are very glad to have her back this evening, especially for her last one. So please join me in welcoming Becky tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. I'm just seeing that there's quite a few people in the room. Would it be better if I stand up here? It might be better for those of you at the back. Yes, okay, right. Yeah, okay. I think that's a little bit better. I don't mind to stand up here. I'll just rejuggle my my papers here. It crossed my mind to say to Gary that if I had one employee like him, for the board to say, if I had one employee like him, that might be enough, right? That one like him. But we don't need to go there. All right. You know what? We have. I want to start by saying that I'm really happy to be here. You did hear that I did serve 2 terms as a trustee with Edmonton Catholic, but I, without any type of disloyalty, I have to say that I think that Calgary Catholic is really what I consider probably the highest functioning board district in the province. And I have traveled all over the province with Alberta Catholic School Trustees Association, certainly in the way that this district deals with and supports school councils. No, I don't think any other district can hold a candle to this district. So you're just in a wonderful, wonderful position here. Wonderful position. Yeah. Yeah. This evening is just exemplary of that. So anyway, I'm really very, very happy to be here. I do want to take this opportunity to introduce 2 of my colleagues from Alberta, from ASCA, Alberta School Council Association, Brenda, Kell, and Suzanne, Lynch. And when you ask for ASCA to come out and do presentations in the future, these 2 gals are located here in Calgary, and they're very likely the ones who will come out and give presentations to you. Both very experienced. So, with that said, we have a ton to cover tonight, and I'm just going to touch on a couple of different things. So, Lupe is going to do my slides for me there. We're just going to jump right in. ASCA does really a lot on the provincial level. So if you have your packages there, you can kind of follow along, and this gives you a bit of an idea of some of the things we do. We're not going to spend an awful lot of time on any particular, on most of these items. We'll slow down just for a few. When you have Alberta School Council Association come out and do particular workshops for you, that's site services, it's at the bottom. It constitutes about 85% of what the association does, and I can assure you that then they slow everything down and really work with your school council, and there's far more interaction than we will have tonight, because we're just going to touch on a whole bunch of little things. So as bombarded as you might feel tonight, you won't feel that way when you have ASCA come out and do a workshop with you. But these are some of the other things we do. That said, I will just note for you the annual conference that we have every year, and some of you come to every year. Luba always comes to, is April 26th and 27th this coming year. So you can mark that down on your calendar. You'll get a little bit more information about some of these things that are coming up at your district general meeting in October. One thing I want to highlight is ASCA gives out awards every year. They give out awards for individual school councils, individual school council members, and districts. People, I honestly think you are in an amazing district with amazing school councils. Start nominating. Start nominating for those awards. You'll win some, right? Okay. And then I just brought one of our resources here to show you. This is the School Council Resource Guide. So, okay. Thank you, Luba. Alberta School Council Association refers to school councils as bridges to promoting positive engagement in schools, school communities. This is very similar to Calgary Catholics' understanding that together is better. Together, we all need to work to promote positive engagement in our school communities, respecting diversity, promoting inclusion, safe and caring schools through our activities. The thing that you want to be thinking about is, how does this look in your school? How do you promote together is better in your school? And this is not just a role for principals to be thinking about or for staff to be thinking about. This is a role for your school councils to have as an overarching kind of umbrella for you to be thinking about during the year as well. They're not just for school councils, but for all parent groups. And in general, in many of your school communities, there will be two main parent groups. Now on this slide, I am going to slow down just a little bit because we're just going to have a gander here and do a little bit of clarification, because this is where a lot of schools struggle, parent groups struggle, between understanding the difference between the school council and what is referred to as, in your district, as the Education Society. So where it says Fundraising Association on your little paper, you can scritch out and put Education Society. These two groups are very different. They're governed by different legislation. School Act governs the School Council, and the Societies Act governs the Fundraising Association. They have different roles, and they have different responsibilities and liabilities. Now, why is this tricky? It's tricky because most of the time, not always, but most of the time, the very same people belong to both groups. The meetings are held on the very same evenings. And in very many cases, the same people sit as chair, as secretary, as treasurer on both groups. So it does get messy, it does get difficult to understand. But in fact, it is really important that you get a grip on understanding the differences between the two. Further complicating the situation is that they both have roles that are quite close. Look at school council. Their purpose, their stated purpose, is to support and enhance student learning. The purpose of an education society, affiliated with a school, is to financially support and enhance student learning through the school and or school council. So almost the same purpose. So again, making it difficult to keep them differentiated. When I say that there's the same people often, that would exclude the principal. The principal is a member of the school council. The principal will not be a member of the education society. So principals going to be different there. The school council is advisory. The role of the school council is to be advisory to the school through the principal or the school board. The school and the school board. The majority of the members on a school council must be parents. Now that's in the School Act, that's in legislation, we'll look at that in a minute, but it actually states that they must be parents. The association, that is the Education Society, is incorporated through corporate registries. That's part of Service Alberta, and they determine their own objectives, their own purpose, which in the case of an education society that is affiliated with a school is almost always going to be something like financially support and enhance student learning in school X. It's almost always going to be something like that, but they have to state it when they apply, and they determine their own membership. The membership is not going to just automatically be the parents of the school. In fact, to be a member of the Education Society, you have to have a membership process. You have to have an actual sign-up membership process. So it's very different there. Your fundraising association, your education society that is affiliated with a school is going to have the reason that it exists. Its reason for existence is going to be to fundraise for that school. So it has to be respectful of the rules of the school and the policies of the school board. It's a little bit different than if it was just a fundraising society out there in the world like Big Brothers, Big Sisters, which are also fundraising societies, but they don't have to respect the policies of someone else, whereas yours will have to. The big thing here is that education societies don't exist in isolation in schools. The school council, of which the principal is a member, that group, it's like they have the authority. So they will be the group that kind of vets requests for financial pieces. The principal and maybe the teacher wish list or some process will come with requests, and they will come to school council, and school council will have a discussion about, well, should we get some kind of iPads or something for the grade 3 class, or should we send the grade 4 class on a field trip? And the discussion will happen in the school council. They will make the request to the fundraising association, and the fundraising association then will free up the money. If the fundraising association is asked for money, they only have 2 questions they need to answer. So who's on a fundraising association? Who's on a fundraising? Okay, here's your 2 questions. This is all you need to answer. Does it fit with our purpose? What's your purpose? To financially support and enhance student learning. Does it fit with the purpose? Well, obviously, your principal and school council are probably not going to ask for something that doesn't fit with the purpose, but you can double check that, right? Does it fit with your purpose? And second question, do we have the money or can we raise it? That's it. If you answer yes to both of those, give them the money. That's what you exist for. Don't start nitpicking with them over things. Just give them the money. That's why you're there. It's simple, okay? Like we see where these 2 groups, sometimes it becomes an abyss, and fundraising associations or education societies start thinking of this money as theirs. Nope. 2 questions. It's simple, right? So put on your hat, your one hat, at your school council meeting, decide if it's worthwhile, If it's a good thing, does it support and enhance student learning? Close that meeting. Put on your other hat, your Education Society meeting. Say, hey, these people asked us for money. Yes, it supports and enhances student learning. And hey, guess what? We've got the money. Take out the checkbook. Our meeting's over. It was a short meeting. Okay, right on. So, a couple other points here, and then I'll take questions on this slide. A couple of other points here. School councils are not legal entities. School councils, I'm talking here, they're advisory only. So they have no legal liability. A society is a separate legal entity outside of the school and outside of the school system. So its board, and by that I mean the society's board, the Education Society has a board, its board, which is your chair, your secretary, your treasurer, that's the board. So the board of the society has legal liability, and it needs to determine its own insurance needs. It could have insurance needs, and you need to determine those. Okay? So I will just stop for a minute and see if anybody has questions here on this section, because this is a difficult one. Yes, ma'am?
So can an Ed Society account be set up solely for the initiative of a new playground?
Yes. Yes, sorry. The question was, can an Ed Society set up a bank account only for the purpose of a new playground? It can be, but I don't know why you would do that. Like, set up a bank account for your Ed Society and then use it for anything. Once your playground is paid for, are you going to fold your Ed Society? So just leave it, like, open your bank account and start putting money in there, and don't restrict yourself in that way. You've got an Ed Society. It's to support and financially support and enhance student learning, and among yourselves make a motion saying we're not spending money on anything except the playground until the playground's paid off.
And then when you have the needs of the school for other things, like, electronics and so forth, where does that money sit then? Like, you thought we had to set up a separate playground and then have another running account in the school.
Okay, you know what? That is entirely up to you. As an Ed Society, this is your business. You could say we're going to have 2 accounts, or you could say we're going to have 1 account, and what we're going to do is we're going to divvy up the money this way. But we can't tell you what to do because you are a separate legal entity and you have the right to do that as you wish. You can do it in 2 accounts. You can do it in 1 account and make a motion among yourselves saying 50% of everything we raise in our Ed Society is going to go to playground, and the other 50% we will use for anything that the school council and the principal come and ask us for. Your decision.
Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else? Yes, at the back. The Fundraising Association holds a function at the school. Fundraising Association better have coverage to cover that. It's a fundraising association event. It's your event. The school very graciously, oh, thank you, Mr. or Miss Principal, gave you permission to hold it there. Thank you very much. It's still your event. So the board has taken care of that. It's the board's. No problem. No problem. Yes, if you have a society, the society is going to have separate everything, separate bank account, separate incorporation, all that will be separate. In your own school council, you will do some smaller fundraising as you wish, as per policy of the school district. But to do big fundraising, am I correct, Luba? In your district, every district's a little different, so I'm hesitant here.
So in terms of, Jerry, are you here? Do you want to respond to that?
So any of the, what the school council does separate from the Ed Society, and it's a decision of the school council working with the school administration in terms of what you need fundraising for. If you are doing fundraising for a playground, whether you use an Ed Society, there are some other options, but your community, like you say, getting the membership and getting the people active and involved is one of the challenges for many of the schools that I've talked to. So often there is an external agency that you can use for the playground itself. So you have that question as to, do I need a fundraising society or an ed society?
So
And
for major fundraising for hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's best to set up an ed society with a separate bank account and try to get community on board and things like that.
yeah, your ed society is going to give you more opportunities to fundraise that a school council cannot do.
So for school council fundraising, we try to do $20,000 a year. Just doing that with the school council, with the school council bank account, that's okay. Is that like?
Working with your school administration and everybody's on side, yes.
Having an ed society, you have more options, but every district is different. I'll just give you an example. In some districts, Edmonton Public comes to mind, their school councils can't do any fundraising. Their school councils can't have a cookie sale. So every district is different, so that's why I hesitate to be completely definitive
So our
on,
school councils can have
yes, they can.
if that's in their bylaw?
Right. Right, so that's why I'm a little hesitant to speak really definitively for your district. Yes?
So would one of the advantages of being incorporated in society make you eligible to apply for outside grants?
Yes, one of the advantages of of having an ed society is you can apply for certain grants, definitely, definitely. Yes? If you would also have to get a charitable status. Just being an ed society does not allow you to give tax receipts. You also have to go a further step and get charitable status as an ed society. You'd have to go a further step, which is a very difficult step, I will add. It's not an easy step. Oh, yes? Well, that comes to mind. Edmonton Public doesn't allow their school councils to accept any funds. Like, they don't even have treasurers on their school councils because they're not allowed even to accept donations. Donations then just, if you get one, you just give it, you direct it to the principal. I couldn't possibly tell you of the 64 districts in the province. That one just came to mind as an example. Okay, so let's carry on then. So today we're going to just look, as we carry on now, we're going to look at just, I'll get you to go ahead, Luba. I'll get you to go ahead. We're just going to look at the couple of the legislated purposes of school council, and on again, and on again. And then we're going to look at a few tips and ideas for managing our meetings a little bit better as you get started in managing your meetings as we move on for this year. Okay, and one more, Luba, thank you. If you take handout number 1, it is the School Act, or at least that page of the School Act that pertains to school councils, and following right behind it are the school council regulation. So what I'd like to do is just go through the things that school councils must do according to the regulation. If you take the school council purpose workshop from ASCA, it would tell you all the things you must do, but also the things you may do, the possibilities. But I'm going to cover the things that you must do. Here's what one thing you must do. You must have this membership on your school council. You must have the principal, must be a member. A teacher must be a member of your school council. A student, if you have a senior high. Parents of children enrolled in the school must be in the majority. There was a change to this regulation on September 1st of this year, and what was added was if you have an early childhood services program in effect in your school, parents of children in that program are also now part of your school council membership, and that is just as of this year. Prior to that, that was a choice that the school council made. So most schools already did that, but now it's in the legislation. And others as decided. So that could be a parish representative, a cultural representative, a community league representative, maybe the school resource officer, people like that. A key point here, though, key point, Parents must be in the majority. Other people in the education system, the senior admin, principals, the board, other people, trustees, I should have said it that way, sorry. Other people have other avenues of having their voices heard. But school councils are the only recognized, provincially recognized path for parents to provide their perspective. So they must be in the majority. Now you have a great big package of handouts there that ASCA has provided. The next couple of handouts are participant role descriptions and also a nice little executive transition checklist. So if you're coming off the executive or going on, it's kind of a handy little thing we have there. The next slide just gives you an idea of some of the big picture things, umbrella kinds of thoughts that you need to keep in mind as you are tackling school council work. Just some things to kind of keep in mind. I'm going to move on with what a school council must do according to the legislation. So if you're looking at your legislation, first, if we dig into it, these are the things that you would find the word must by. Regulation 8.1 covers membership, which I just covered. 9.1 and 9.2, which there is no slide for, really it says another must, and it's a must that a school council executive must have a chair and it must be a parent. You have to trust me on that or you can look it up. It's 9.1 and 9.2, but there's no slide for it. A school council must have a chair and it must be a parent. The next must is this. The chair of a school council must prepare and provide a report for the board by September 30th. And in that report, you summarize the activities of the previous year and you detail any of the money that you received or handled or used. So there's been a slight rewording there this year as well. Calgary Catholic has a couple of examples of school activity reports in this, your school council handbook. You have a couple examples in there, as well as a financial example in there. I'm going to come to you, I see your hand, I'm going to come to you in a second, as well as an example of the finances. Now, the financial piece might seem intimidating, but it should not be, because this is not for your education society. This is only for your school council part, and you also want to keep in mind that a school council doesn't raise money just to raise money. A school council takes the approach that you have a plan in place before you raise money. You don't ever, you kind of take the plan, or you take the mindset of just because we can raise money doesn't mean we should be raising money. What are we raising, what are we doing fundraising for? So a school council always takes this idea first. You put in place the thinking of what you want to raise money for. Now, Ed Society might have a different mindset. If they want to just go and raise money till the cows come home, that can be their business. But on school council, we don't just raise money to raise money endlessly. We don't take that mindset. You had a question or comment? You kind of work that out among yourselves. If the current chair, you know what? Yeah, you know, if the current chair has left because his or her children have left the school, of course it falls to the current chair, and what you do is you look back in the previous minutes, there's examples in the book. There's examples in the book, and really what they're looking for is a point form. You can go through the minutes and say, well, this happened, this happened. It's not onerous. But if the current chair is there, you often will do it together. Yes? No. No, you do this report, and there will be a place that it gets sent into.
And principals will help you with this. They're very well versed in it. They'll help you put that together.
Yeah. And it gets sent into central office somewhere. Yep. Yeah, Chaluba, okay, great, great, okay. What else must a school council do? So up next, a school council must retain a copy of the minutes of each meeting, and you have to keep them for 7 years. Okay, honestly, longer than, as far as we can tell, Donald Trump has kept his income tax, right? You have to keep your school council minutes, right? And you can keep them digitally, or you can keep them on hard copy. It's kind of recommended that you keep at least one hard copy in the school in a binder. And when they say you have to keep them, it means not in somebody's house. You have to keep them accessible at the school, okay? The last must, which we also don't have a slide for, is you have to have your first meeting, hold your first meeting of the year within 20 school days of the start of the year, or otherwise specify otherwise. So 20 school days, that takes you sort of into the beginning of October. All of the other musts in the regulations are musts for the school board, things the school board must do for you, or things that the principal must do for you, or they are things related to the establishment of a school council. But if you're already established, I've covered all the things that you must do. Everything else are things that you may do. So you're good to go. Okay. These are things that you are not. You are not governance. Already, we heard that at the beginning. Who's governance? They're sitting around the room here. The board is governance. We're also employers, even though they only employ one person. The one person they employ is responsible for employing all the other people. So it filters down from there. System managers, that's the superintendent. And school manager, the buck stops with him or her, the principal. And believe me, most of the time, we want the buck stopping there. You're not primarily fundraisers. Primarily, you are there to, school councils are there to support and enhance education. So you're not primarily fundraisers. Primarily fundraisers would be the Education Society, or you just do a little bit of fundraising as a school council. You're not primarily lobbyists, although sometimes, particularly our boards turn to us and might say, can you give us a hand lobbying for such and such? Maybe, I think, I can't just remember the number right now, with the federal government said anybody selling marijuana, those kind of shops have to be so many meters from school yards. So maybe your board would say, let's lobby our municipalities that fall within our jurisdiction, so that'd be Chestermere and Calgary and all those, and ask for it to be further. So they might turn to the school councils to ask you to help them lobby, to do that kind of thing, something like that. And complaint sessions. We never want our meetings to devolve into kind of complaint sessions. My husband would tell you that's what he's there for. Okay, let's move to the meeting piece. So the meeting piece really always has three main components to any meeting. There's a social component of the people. They come with their attitudes, with their experience and their backgrounds. The context of a meeting is, do people come with enough information to participate, to make positive contributions? And the structure of the meeting. Do we have enough pieces in place in the structure of the meeting to help achieve the meeting and have it run smoothly? There's a second set of handouts. They start and they're renumbered. So I'll start referring again to number 1. So meeting anatomy, number 1. That handout starts to kind of go into detail now about meetings here. I think, like this diagram shows it 50% and 30% and 20%. That's kind of meaningless. It's just showing that there's a division, that, of course, every meeting is going to be different. Some meetings, you might have a tiny little sliver of one, and the other would be bigger, the other two would be bigger. That's just to show you that you have all three components at different times. So with the social component, I just want to point out with the social component that we want to be really aware that people come, they come with their own baggage, and so we want to be aware of that every time that we have a meeting, and just to be sensitive to it. When you have meeting rules of order, maybe a conduct agreement, a code of ethics, that type of thing, that can help pave the way for just a smoother meeting, everybody being kind of on the same page. On that regard, we have some handouts in the handout package that you might find useful. But before I go further on that, I also will turn your attention to your own school council handbook. There is a code of ethics in it. And actually, I never took the opportunity to say, here again, I can say this to you, in this room, total leadership in the province, in this handbook. Total leadership in the province. I have yet to see anywhere in the province a better resource for school councils than this. And you know what? It's downloadable, it's on the web, you all have access to it, and there's a hard copy in every one of your schools. Every one of your schools has this. You should have this at every one of your meetings because you can find everything you need for a school council in here. It's an amazing resource. And you have a school council code of conduct in here as well. So, kudos to the board and the district for pulling that together. Yeah. Yes. Oh, Mary's there. Mary, you worked on that at one time. Luba worked on that. I don't know who else, but anyway, Peeps worked on that. Okay. In terms of the, I think we're moving along. Yes, whatever. Context in the context component. Here, you want to make sure that people come prepared to a meeting, that they're able to be prepared, that they, people want to contribute. They want to be able to share their opinions, their suggestions. So the thing that you want to do as the chairs is you want to find ways to help them feel that they have a shared context. That you want to make sure that they have enough information coming to a meeting. They have enough background information. When an issue is presented, they get enough background and they get enough of a bit of a story of each issue that they can talk intelligently about it and they can share ideas about it so that they can have this feeling of we're all in this together and we're on the same page and we can talk about these things together. So I'm not going to belabor some of these points. We'll go to structural component. Handout 5 gives you some school, and Handout 5 gives you an example of school council operating procedures. There's also, again, back in the big book, there are school council operating procedures are sometimes called bylaws, and I think you use them interchangeably. Here, bylaws, school council operating procedures, either way. There are 3 different examples in your big book. We've included one example in your package here. You find one that works for you. You find one that you feel fits your school council. And there's also a workshop. Our gals will come out and work you through a workshop. If you say, this is close to what we want, but we need it tweaked, we need some help with it, we want ours to be a little bit different, they will work you through getting something that is exactly right for your school council. Then you should review them every year and then take them with you to every meeting, your own school council bylaws or operating procedure. Lots of times you don't know what to do in a situation. You're at the November meeting and you say, oh, we've covered this, and we've got this coming up, and you know what, January is always so, wretchedly cold, and, we don't get a good turnout in January. Do we have to have a meeting in January? I don't know. Open up your school council bylaws or operating procedure. It probably tells you in there the minimum number of meetings you need to have in a year. If it says the minimum is 6 and you haven't missed any, you're good to go. Cancel January. Do yourselves all a favor. Stay home. Go skiing. Something else, right? It's got tons of information in there. You're sitting around at the AGM. Can we start the meeting? I don't know. What's quorum? How many people do we need? Open up your bylaws, operating procedures. Guess what? We got 2 extra people. Let's go. Let's get this meeting on the road, right? It'll be there. It'll be in there. And if it's not, if those kind of things come up and they're not in your operating procedures, bylaws, put them in. Put them in for next time, because then you'll start to see what you need in yours. Go to your examples. Your examples, between the 3 of them, will have all of those things in them. So start fleshing out what's important for your situation. Call our gals, they'll help you. Okay. Another easy way to add structure to your meeting is through the agenda. Handout 6 gives you a sample monthly agenda. And, okay, let's just go and talk more about agenda. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about agenda. In the perfect world of agenda setting, there are some particular elements. Okay, there should be a process to allow school council members an opportunity to provide agenda items or topics. There should be a process to allow school council members an opportunity to provide agenda items and topics. Here's what the process is not. Chair, I want to add this to the agenda. That is not the process. Not the process. Why? Because the chair is blindsided and the principal is blindsided. And that can never, never happen in your meetings. Say to yourselves, I will never let that happen in my meetings. Not to me as a chair and not to my principal. Never, okay? But there still has to be a process. The process should be something like you email the chair ahead and say, I would like this item. Or at the end of the meeting, you say, I've got a suggestion for upcoming meetings. There should be a process so that your members have a voice. Okay? I'm going to come back to that in a second. Now, the agenda has to be co-constructed by the school council chair or school council executive and the principal. There are no exceptions. No exceptions. Both parties involved. Neither party steps into the meeting room not knowing what's on the agenda. Ever. If the principal constructs the agenda, he or she emails it to the chair, who then pokes their beak at it and has a look and fires something back, or vice versa. But both those parties have had a look at it, right? Co-constructed. If they can't get together physically, they've still co-constructed it. The topics are relevant and appropriate to advising the principal on matters concerning the school. I said that there needs to be a process for members to have their input on items, okay? But even with a process, it doesn't mean that every item that's suggested gets on an agenda because of the co-constructed process. So Becky puts her item in. I really think this is a good idea. Really good idea. So the principal and the chair take a look at what's coming up. Okay, they've got this, they've got this, they've got this. We've got the results from the grade 6, and I've got this coming up. So this meeting is full. Plus, we have Becky's idea. Oh, what was that idea? They look at Becky's idea. There's 2 things that might happen. They might say, wow, who knew? She had this good idea. This is a really good idea. Let's add it to, well, let's see, this November agenda is really full. December agenda is really full. Let's add it to the January agenda. Let's add it to January. And I can probably get, principal says, I can probably get some material from downtown office to even give us a little bit background material and some support to this. Great idea. You let Becky know we're going to add it, and we're going to add it in January. Okay? Great. Great process working really well. Or they look at this and they say, what is she thinking? No, Becky, no. Why? Because this is not an appropriate topic for school council. Well, nice try, Becky, but it doesn't belong to us. This is highly political. Who's going to deal with her? Oh, I'll deal with her. One of them says, I'll give Becky a call and direct her politely to where she needs to go. She needs to go to Mary Martin because that's her trustee. We're sending her to Mary Martin. It's political. So we're going to ask her to call her trustee and discuss it with her. It's still something worth talking about. She's a valued parent. But it doesn't belong at school council. Or the principal picks up the phone and says, you know what, thanks for that, but that's an issue that you just need to come in and talk to me personally about. It's not for school council. Somebody gets back and redirects, right? Okay. As well, when they're doing this co-constructing of the agenda, they take a look and they see at the timing. So they're going to look at each item and they're going to look at the overall picture. You want a Cinderella kind of agenda, not so full that people look and say, 3.5 hours worth, there's no way I'm going. You know, I don't have that much time in my life. And they don't want to look at it and say, well, I might as well go for coffee with my friends at Tim Hortons because it's just fluff. Why would I go out for this? You want something that sets the right tone, that sets to people, look, we have meaningful business to do. The principal wants a little advice on this. We're getting results from the grade interpretation and results from the grade 6 math from last year. This is going to be a great meeting and it's going to last an hour and a half or whatever the case might be. I think I'm going to enjoy coming to this. So you want to set a tone that there's real business to be discussed and we're there to support and enhance student learning. When we're just taking a look. When we're there setting the agenda, at the top of any agenda, do you feel bombarded? You see how I'm just like kind of like a machine gun? But we have a lot to cover, okay? So you can flag me down if you need. All right. When we're setting an agenda, on the top part of the agenda, you just put the regular meeting information that you normally put, date, time, all that kind of thing. Put some little reminders up there if you want. Please bring ideas for staff appreciation or read the attached something or other. Then on your actual agenda, you put the call to order because goodness knows I've forgotten the call to order a million times myself. So put it down just so you don't forget. Okay, review or approval adoption of the agenda. Okay, you're going to think I'm just making this up, but honestly, you people have it right yet again here in Calgary. It's review of agenda. That's all you do. And I think every school council should just do review of agenda, as should like most community leagues and all kinds of other groups, because you've had your agendas already approved by the two key people, the two key players who you're not blindsiding. Who? The chair and the principal. So you know what? You're not changing it now, because changing it would mean blindsiding at least one of them. And we're not going to allow that, because we already swore we wouldn't, didn't we? You did, at least under your breath, because I told you to, right? All right, so you're not going to do this. So scratch that out and just put review of agenda, because that's all you do in Calgary Catholic. Why? Because you're smarter than most people. Yes, you are. You're smarter. You just review the agenda because it's done. It's already been accepted. I'm going to tell you what changes you can agree to, okay? You can still agree to changes. These are the changes you can agree to. Alberta Ed said that they would have a statement on blah, blah out. So you put it down there, the two of you, the two groups. And then, as you're going into the meeting, the principal says, we didn't get the statement. What? We didn't get the statement. We didn't get the statement. We didn't get the... You're kidding, those buffoons. Nobody from Alberta Ed here, eh? I worked at Alberta Ed. I worked at Alberta Ed for 15 years. Okay, so, we didn't get the statement. So, one of the changes you can make is, together you agree, okay, well, we got to pull it. The chair and the principal together can pull an item off the agenda. So the chair says at the beginning, we're going to pull item 3 because the intellects at Alberta Ed did not get us that statement. Okay, so we pull that item. They can pull, that's a change they can make. The other change that can be made is we're going to move item 6 up to be item 2 on the main agenda, because that's Becky's report, and Becky needs to give it earlier in the meeting because she's going to have to leave. She just let us know her husband has bubonic plague and she'd like to run home before he expires. Say a quick goodbye. Or whatever the case might be. But you can juggle the order, is what I'm saying. You can juggle the order. That's it. Those are the only changes you're going to allow. The only changes you're going to allow. Not what are you not going to allow? I want to add the item, blah, blah, blah. No, none of that. Okay? Approval of previous minutes. As soon as somebody says, Chair, my name is no, okay, thank you. Chair, you've used a semicolon. No, thank you. As soon as you get housekeeping items, thank you. Could you please put small changes just on a piece of paper and hand it to the secretary and she'll fix those things? Or the chair says, does anyone have any substantive? Does anybody have any critical changes? That's what you take from the floor. You know what? You have how many people there? They do not have time for this. You might. Maybe that's why you took on chair. That's why you took on chair. But trust me, the rest of the people, and believe me, the principal doesn't. The principal doesn't have time to listen to comma changes. Okay, so you just get them to put it on a piece of paper. Business arising should only be for clarifications that were discussed at the previous meeting. Oh yes, Cheryl, you said you would get back to us on such and such. Do you have that information? Okay, thank you, good. Very quick, just something that they were going to get back to. The dates of this are that. Okay, thank you very much. Business arising, so very quick. Business of the meeting is the heart of your meeting. We'll cover that in a minute. Adjournment. At this time, you might cover reminders, dates of the next meeting, that kind of thing. Okay, business of the meeting. Are we doing okay? We're doing okay. Business of the meeting. What works for you? These are just ideas. For goodness sakes, we showed this slide one time and then they put all these things down. You can't do all these things. Just pick what works for you, right? Just pick things that work for you. If you normally use reports, then write your reports down. You might have a principal report. You might have the Ed Society report. A teacher commonly brings maybe highlights from school initiatives or special successes of students, that type of thing. A high school student committee reports. Maybe you're going to use old business or ongoing business and new business. New business? What kind of new business do we use? Scheduled new business that you have articulated with the principal. Not just, does anybody have any new business? Because that would be breaking our rule. It would be breaking our rule. So new business is just new business that you have articulated, that you've written down there, okay? Other people organize their agendas by calling it information items, discussion items, decision items. So these are just, the top 4 are just ways that people organize their business. That's all those are. You find something that works for you. There's no special rule. Then some people like to include the name of the presenter and the approximate time. Again, entirely up to you if you like to do that. And something I like to do, entirely up to you, is I like to write out motions, particularly the simple motions, like I move, where it says minutes, I put down, I move the adoption of the minutes of September the 13th, 2018, whatever it might be. Because that way, after a meeting or two, if I see somebody who's kind of quiet, who's a little bit reticent, then I might say, Luba, would you mind making that motion for us? And it lets Luba start to speak at a meeting in a very non-threatening way. She can just read it out, and now she's in the minutes. She's spoken at a meeting where she maybe wouldn't, and she's in a non-threatening way, and her name is in the minutes. And it can be very affirming for people in a non-threatening way. Yes?
I'm wondering if everything has to be motioned. What happens if you have consensus?
Oh, I will come to that, but yeah, that's a good question. Remind me if I don't come to it. Okay. Okay. Yeah, Yeah, okay, I think that's good there, right? Here we go to the meeting. Remember, you know what? Remember, if there's one thing I can remind you of, we don't just ever meet just to meet. If you are sitting at home, or you and the principal contact each other and say, okay, what's on the agenda? And really, you take a look and you say, there's nothing essential this month. We could do all this next month and have a meatier meeting, if you will, a meatier meeting next month. And maybe we shouldn't. Cancel this meeting. Defer this meeting. Have the meeting. There's no reason to just meet to meet, right? Procedures. Okay, these are the next few little things we're going to talk about, so let's just move on from there, Luba. So why do you use rules of order at all? For these reasons, next one, Luba, thanks. Thank you. These are the reasons that you use rules of order. This is the things that they can do for you, but ultimately, the bottom line is using rules of order helps everyone be treated equally. And it helps you as a chair, they help you as a chair to treat everyone equally. And along with doing all of those things. So in handout 2, I think it's handout 2 of the second section, there are some school council rules of order. I will just say this, those rules of order were not written by us, they were written by a school council and offered to us. And I thought that they were quite well done. If you come to the Alberta School Council Association annual general meeting, or in fact any big convention, you will see that at the beginning of a convention, always some standing rules or rules of order are passed by the assembly, and that's what they follow. And I recommend to school councils that you do the same. At the beginning of the year, you write out just a few, 8 or 10 or 12 rules that you will follow for the year. It's no use saying you're going to follow Robert's Rules of Order unless somebody knows them well. Because you know what you're going to get? You're going to say you're following Robert's Rules of Order, and you're going to get some donkey like me who knows them well and then challenges you. Maybe not as nice as me, right? Who's going to challenge? That's not in Robert's Rules of Order. On page 614, line 17 to 21, it says blah, 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 right? And you don't want to be in that position. So write yourself a few rules of order that are meaningful for your group, and then follow them. Pass them by motion and say, we will live with these for this year, and every year after, we'll tweak them. If something didn't work, we'll make a motion and we'll change it and we'll improve until we have something that works well for us. And then post them. Have people have access to them.
I've got counts where we get talking, it's fuzzy between what needs to be voted on and what doesn't. As for example, do we always vote on money? If we're deciding on money,
Right.
can it be consensus that gets
Right.
blurred?
I think I have that under G. So we'll talk about that when we come to G here, okay? Sort of similar to the other gal's point. So we'll talk about that. Okay, let's start with, let's assume we were going to write some down. If I was going to write, and the other thing, you know, at a lot of meetings, I don't have any with me, but we use little tent cards. You girls wouldn't have a tent card with you. Ooh, you know what? Look at this. Brenda will have a tent card with her. Awesome. Look at that. So on one side, she has the name, and on the other side of the tent, the side that's facing the participant, they've got like the rules of order for your meeting. And so that reminds you all the time. That reminds the participants, oh, Brenda, you're the best. Okay. Okay, online? Great. And so then facing you all the time are the rules that are important to your group, right? Okay, great. So if I were writing rules of order for my school council, the first thing I would put is something like, we can go ahead. And another one. Yep. Assume good intentions. Yes, this is a basic motherhood statement. But it is worth starting from this point, because it's when we're all playing nicely in the sandbox, we don't need this one. But sometimes when things get a little bit tense, this is when we need to remind ourselves that this mule over here did not come to this meeting just to antagonize me. This person came to this meeting because they believe in supporting and enhancing student learning for their child and every child in this school as much as I do. They just see it from a completely different way that I do, and I have to say, you know what? They're here for just as good a reasons as me. Just as good a reasons as me. So I got to pull my horns in and get a better perspective. I will assume good intentions, right? So it's always good to start with one of these motherhood kind of statements. It really is. Okay, addressing the chair and others. This has a couple of different meanings. Even in the casual meeting, even in the friendliest meeting, it is my belief, and you don't have to believe along with me, but it is my belief that the chair should be referred to as chair. It's not a person, it's a role. And I think it adds dignity to the role, and it adds dignity to your meeting, even if there's 6 of you there, if you refer to the chair as chair. The chair. What does the chair think about this? Right? I think it adds dignity. You know who's laughing? Who's laughing are chairs. Because the only people who have trouble with this are chairs. If you tell this to all the other people go, yeah, okay, I'm good with that. We'll call you chair in the meeting. But the chairs, they do this. No, don't call me chair. Just call me Becky. No. Yeah. No, go ahead. We used to be able to say man up, but now we'll say human up. Human up. Be a chair, right? Let yourself be called chair. Give it a try. Give it a try for a couple meetings, just for a couple meetings. Okay. This also means when we talk about addressing the chair, in really highly formal meetings, all your comments are made to the chair. Like in the legislature, they're all made to the speaker. And in highly formal meetings, all your comments are made to the chair. Well, that doesn't really work when you're in a nice, collegial, informal school council meeting. But there's a piece of it that works. And if you can train your people to do this, it will really help you. If you can train your people to, when they're making general comments, they just make them to everyone. Well, this is what I'm thinking about this. Blah, 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 blah. Looking at everybody. But when they have something to say that they, and you know when you're going to do it, when you know that you're going to say something that doesn't resonate with somebody, or which is completely contrary to somebody, or, it's the equivalent of saying, I think you're completely loopy. When you're going to say something really dicey, that's when you look right at the chair. And you say, I have to offer a different opinion on this point. I really think that blah, 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 blah. That's when you look right at the chair. And chairs, you better be attuned. You should always be paying attention to the tone of your meeting. And if somebody's voice, you can tell, oh, I need to create a safe space right now because this person is saying something difficult. Look at them steady, and create a safe space. Because it's your meeting to create that safe space. The other time you do this, you have a timid member, you have a quiet member, you have a member who has a hard time speaking, and suddenly they speak, you better rivet your head up and make eye contact. Nice neutral eye contact, like, you can speak to me. It's like we are the only people in the room. Go ahead, dear, speak to me. That's your role. So in those cases, that's addressing the chair. Like, help out in those cases. So in that case, you're not texting in between people speaking, right? The chair, you got to be really attentive as chair. You have to be right there with your people, right there with your people. Because you never know, it can turn on a dime. It really can. Somebody needs you, so be there for them. And for others, make sure that whatever you do, in school council meetings, usually we call other people by first names. perfectly all right, but make sure that that's equal. So that if Becky comes in and says, I want to be called Dr. Smith because I got my doctorate last week. No, no. That's nice. Congratulations, Becky, but you're Becky here because we're all going by first names, right? Equal. It's equal in this venue, right? So that's a good one. Speak only when recognized. Speak only when recognized. Okay, this rule really is no interrupting. No interrupting. You can't just start speaking back and forth to each other. So this is really important. This is a really, like I would write this as one of my rules, no interrupting, because this is what happens. I say, as chair, go ahead, please, and you start talking. And you say something, and then I say, go ahead, please, and you start talking. And you say something that sparked something in this person who already spoke. And so you just start blabbing on again. And then you start again. And pretty soon, it's these two people. And what are the rest of you doing? Like by now, you're texting. Right? It's true. It's true. They are completely excluded from the meeting. So no, there's no of this back and forth. There's no speak only when recognized. So how do you get recognized? Go ahead, please. Go ahead, please. You start up again and I go, I'm the chair. I go, just hold on a minute, please. Go ahead, please. Because you were in the line up next. You are the referee, the chair. Don't be afraid to be the referee. Oh, hang on a second. Hang on a second, please. We've heard from you already. You big mouth. In your brain, right? You got two voices happening here, right? You have two voices. You're always really pleasant and even. But you can't let this happen. You can't let this happen because you just drove away those three people. They're texting in a heartbeat or doodling or whatever. So you have to say, oh, just hang on a second. I'll get back to you. Go ahead, please. Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, back to you. Thank you. So you have to not allow people to talk unless you've done the directing. Who's chair of your board right now? Cheryl? Cheryl, do you let people just yak away? Oh! Don't answer me, Cheryl. Public meetings. Never. Okay. All right. Follow speaking guidelines. So speaking guidelines are things like this. Nobody can speak a second time if somebody's waiting to speak the first time. So this is exactly the case that happened here. We've already heard from you, and we haven't heard from everybody the first time. Right? Is there anybody who hasn't spoken the first time who'd like to? Okay, then go ahead, please. Nobody else wanted to, then we do want to hear from you the second time. Right? Yeah, you're in control of that. You're the chair, and you're not doing this meanly. You're doing this pleasantly every time, because you're not enemies with these people. You're friends with all of them. You're trying to run a happy, good meeting that everybody gets. This is the idea. The idea is to hear from many people once or twice, not one or two people many times, right? But how often do we go to meetings where we hear from one or two people many times? Now, it's different if somebody, Linda was the presenter and presented something, we have to keep going back to her for clarification. That's a little bit different. But just blabbing your opinion in there after every other person speaks, that's different. Right? Okay. Yeah. Oops. Is it time? Is it time? Okay.
So because we've come to that time where we do have the treasurer's session that's happening, which is a little bit different than what's happening here, so I'm going to ask anybody who is going to be involved in the treasurer to go to Selkirk B with John Mooney and with Jerry Boiteau, and we'll continue the presentation here.
Okay. Okay, thank you, treasurers. Okay. Look at all the money people. Okay. Another really important standing rule that I would write down would be debate ideas, not people. Never allow personal comments to be made in your meeting. As soon as somebody starts talking about another person or personnel, school personnel, same thing, no personal comments. You have to shut that down right away. And you would just have to say, you know what, we can't go there. Let's just, whoops, next one. So you want to say, I think Calgary Catholic has the disagree without being disagreeable. Disagree without being disagreeable. So you never make it personal, never about people. You keep it on the ideas, on the subject, on the topic. And again, this is chair is working to do this, okay? Stay on topic. Okay, we've all seen when we're talking about the grade 5 field trip and if we're going to fund the grade 5 field trip, and next thing you know, somebody's talking about their trip to Vancouver. Okay, really? Really? You've got to stay on topic. No, can we just hold that discussion till we have the break? No, we're holding that discussion till we, you just keep getting firmer and firmer. But you've got to keep on topic or your meeting just gets away from you. And it happens so quickly. It's happened to me as being in the chair. I have a lot of chairing experience. I was chairing a meeting in the spring, just a small meeting, and I sat there for a minute and I thought, how'd you get here, Becky? Oh my goodness. You've totally lost them. They're talking about something. So I wrapped the thing and I said, okay, that's my fault. We got way off topic. It just happens in a second. It just happens so darn quickly. You just have to refocus everyone. And as chair, sometimes take it on the chin and say, you know what, people, sorry, let's get back to our topic, which is this. This is what we're talking about. Okay. Decide together. Now, here's where we had some questions. We had, in your rules of order, you should say how you're making decisions. Are you always going to use consensus? Are you sometimes going to use consensus and sometimes use voting? Are you always going to use voting? Here's where you would flesh that out. We will use voting anytime we spend money. That's pretty standard. It's pretty standard. If you're going to spend money, you're going to use a motion. Now, if your school council doesn't spend money, if you do all your money through the education society, that wouldn't be so much of a concern. If you're going to give formal advice to the principal and you want it in the form of a motion, which is not all that common, but if you want the opportunity to give formal advice, you might say you're going to do that by motion. But you can stipulate in your standing rules what you would do by consensus. Or we will do procedural motions. We will do procedural parts by motion. That is, pass the minutes, adjourn the meeting, that type of thing by motion. You can say that. You can list the things you're going to, and money spending. Elections at your AGM are going to be by motion, probably. And even if they're acclaimed, you'll make a motion saying that these people are acclaimed. You can say that right in your standing rules. Then, if you're going to have motions used some of the time, take a step over to where your bylaws, operating procedures are, and in there, say who can vote. If you're going to use motions some of the time, in your bylaws or operating procedures, say who can vote. Can your principal vote? I don't care. It's up to you. In some school councils, the principal says, I don't want to vote. I don't want to vote. I have other ways. I just want to give advice here. I just want to be part of the membership, but it's not important to me to vote. In some districts, in some whole districts, they say they want their principals voting. In some districts, they say they don't want their principals voting on school councils. So I'm indifferent. I'm just saying, in your bylaws and operating procedures, you would stipulate things like that. Your other members, if you have a member from Community League, you would probably stipulate that they don't vote. A parish representative probably doesn't vote. Okay, does that clear up those couple of questions? Yes, go ahead.
So if not every person, every parent at that meeting is part of parent council, so then they would have the opportunity to vote or not vote. We kind of came from where it was just the chair that was allowed to vote, but there was a lot of disagreement.
Just the chair vote? The chair's like a dictator then. I want to be on your school council.
Every parent at a meeting is part of parent council.
Yep. Every parent should always be able to vote. That's kind of a given. It would be others then. Here's, just while I'm thinking of that, chairs can't make motions. Do you know that? Do you know that? Good, good. If anybody didn't know that, don't tell me. Chairs can't make motions, okay? Chairs cannot make motions. No, okay. Good. So did that clear up decide together? And the voting? Okay, good. Good. Support the chair. The last, oh, I'm sorry. No. Of course. And chairs would say, I would like a motion on blah-bitty-blah-bitty-blah. In fact, I'm getting tired of waiting for a motion on such and such. We're not moving on unless you make a motion on this. Yeah. You can be pretty direct. Okay.
Can chairs second the motion?
No. No. Chairs, you stay out of it. Okay. Support the chair. The last thing I would have is support the chair. Agree that and get your people to agree. Chairing is a difficult job. It is difficult. You've got to be doing all these things, and you've got to be alert and attentive all the time. Chairing is difficult. And not only that, you want to create an environment where a year or two down the road, where you're no longer in that school or you're no longer to chair, you want to have left an environment and created an environment where several other people say, wow, that looked like it was halfway fun. I think I'll take that on. Right? Because right now, so often, we struggle to get chairs. You want to create an environment where people say, I can do that. I want to be a chair. Right? So to do that, you have to get the people supporting you, willing to support. Okay. Remember, once you get those rules written down, they're not written in stone. Pass them by motion, and then when they need tweaking, when they need changing, when they don't suit your particular school council, make a change next year. Make a change halfway through the year. Do what you have to and get them working for your group so that they are operational for you. I'm going to spend only a few minutes, because you're all chairs here, I'm going to spend only a few minutes. Okay. Okay, great. So you're all chairs or potentials. That's right. Right, okay. Okay, great. I'm going to spend just a couple minutes here on role of the chair. I'll get you to move. Yeah, good. You need to show neutrality, and this we touched on. So you don't make motions and you don't second, but the other thing you do in any discussion, as much as possible, when do you give your opinion? Way, way, way at the end of the discussion. The last person to speak, or you don't speak because it's all been said. Because what you're doing is you're trying to draw out the opinion of the other people. You're trying to get what they think. And then you might say at the end, yeah, you know what, I'm kind of leaning towards this. I think this would be a great idea too, and what we could do for the staff appreciation is we could also do blah-bitty-blah-bitty-blah, and I'd be willing to do this. You're trying to get the ideas from the other people. You hold back and be as neutral as possible, as much as possible. If you ever have to vote on something, you don't do this. Those in favor? Those in favor? Right? That is not good chairing. Those in favor and the chair. Right? You hold back. You hold back. You're as neutral as possible, as long as possible. You show fairness. You treat everyone exactly the same as much as possible. And what will really help you here is if you have a few speaking rules, a few meeting protocols, like you don't let somebody speak you don't let somebody speak the second time until everybody's had a chance to speak the first time. Or you don't let people interrupt. If you have a few speaking rules in place that work for you, this will really help you to show fairness to everyone. You be firm. By this I mean you be pleasant to everyone, but you be firm. You be willing and ready to say things like, okay, that's enough on this topic. We're really getting circular. Are you ready for a show of hands on how we're feeling about this? You're pleasant about it. But when you have to be firm, you have to be firm. And if you absolutely have to say, okay, Luba, I can't let you talk to anyone like that. No, I'm picking on you. If you have to say, okay, Luba, I can't let you go on like that, you say it nicely, but you say it firmly. You say what you have to say. I'm only picking on you because I can do that safely, okay? And then you control discussion. Now these are very, do we have time to go through these quickly? Okay, we'll just go through them quickly. Now we'll go ahead, Luba. Thanks. And again, some little tools for directing discussion. Prepare standard phrases. You know what? If you can use the same standard phrases over and over, and anyone who has chaired meetings, you will use the same standard phrases over and over and over again. You might think that people will think this is repetitive and that it's not a good thing, but you're wrong. The more you use the same exact phrases over and over, the more you will be seen as utterly fair. Utterly fair. Oh, look, she uses exactly the same kind of words on me as she does on her best friend or on her worst enemy. You will be seen as utterly, utterly fair. So, we'll go through some here. Okay. I always say, go ahead, please, go ahead, please, go ahead, please, in meetings where I don't know the people's name. If I know the people's name, I'll say, go ahead, please, Mary, go ahead, please, Mary. You know what, this takes a split second. It takes a split second to say that little phrase, but it identifies the people specifically. Specifically. It's not just random. They're recognized. It lets the people in the meeting know that the chair is talking to them. And if you don't know them and you say, go ahead, please, you're looking right at them, and they know, go ahead, please. Okay, we've made eye contact. Who am I talking to? I'm talking to you. You're somebody to me in the meeting, right? So it's an acknowledgement. Watch the time. When you set the agenda, you should establish the start and stop times. Well, we've talked about that. But now you should have some standard phrases for when it's not going well. If you've spent 20 minutes on an agenda item that you had allocated 10 minutes for, and you told them there was 10 minutes and they've gone way over, you should have some phrases for that. Okay, people, this item's taking a lot longer than we thought it would take. We can put it on next meeting's agenda, or we can wrap this up in 5 minutes. Show of hands. Next meeting's agenda. Show of hands. Thank you. 5 minutes. Thank you. It's on next meeting's agenda. Next item is this. Move it along, right? You should have some phrasing ready to do something as a chair. And use the same kind of phrasing that you use all the time. A chair that I know at a community league says this before every single item. He says, short and sweet so everyone has a say. And then before everybody speaks, he says, go, go, go. It's quite disconcerting the first time you're there, but it's his way. As chairs, you find a way that works for you. I say, go ahead, please. He says, go, go. So you find something that works for you. Track your speakers. You can't keep track of who spoke, especially if you're in a long discussion on something important. You know, I just write them like this in a column. And if somebody spoke a second time, I start them here. I just write them in columns. But somehow, as chair, you've got to know who's spoken once, twice, 3 times. So that you've spoken 1 time, you've spoken twice, you've spoken 3 times. you haven't spoken at all, you're on the list to speak again, you know what? You get to jump in. You get to jump in. If you put your hand up and somebody else can't say, I had my hand up first. Well, she got to speak 3 times, and I had my hand up. I don't care. I'm worried about the overall good of the whole meeting. And the overall good of the whole meeting tells me this person has not spoken at all. The overall good of the whole meeting is that we hear this voice. Even if we've heard yours 3 times, we've heard yours twice. It's not the overall good of the meeting that we exclude this voice right now. So this is what you're thinking all the time, the overall good of the whole meeting. So, and you have phrasing around that. Becky, I see you want to speak again. I'm going to have to hold you for now. We have somebody waiting. So you just get phrases that work for you. Phrases that work for you. Restrict repetition. Okay, repetition is just a killer, as we know. If I can tell you as chairs one thing to say, it's this. Find a sentence to say after every single person speaks and say it. In the meetings that I have chaired over the years, I have said hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times the same sentence. I say, the people from ASCA or from my board would know, thank you for your comments. I don't care if you say something that would put a man on Mars. I will say, thank you for your comments. And if you say something that I think you should be committed for, I will say, thank you for your comments. Right? It doesn't matter to me. Thank you for your comments, because I mean it. I look right at the person and say, thank you for your comments, because you were brave enough in whatever the situation to speak and contribute to our meeting. And that's my job as chair, is to thank you for your comments. Sometimes I do it when people interrupt. It's just so ingrained in me. You have to make people feel valued. And why is it important here? Because most of the time when people repeat themselves, it's because they don't think anybody was listening the first time. And as chair, you have to look at people when they're talking. And you know what? You see this person. Oh my God, it's her again. Here she's, and so you drift off as chair. And she finally quits talking and you go, yeah, to the next person. No, you have to keep looking at her so that she feels, I hear you, even if you're making a shopping list in your head. She's got to believe you hear her, and then you have to say something that works for you. For me, it's, thank you for your comments. Make her feel heard. Mostly so she doesn't do this again in 5 minutes, right? No. I'm just kidding, but really, she's got to feel heard. People come to meetings to feel heard. And as chair, it is tongue-in-cheek, but like sincerely, as chair, you do have to want to hear everyone. Else don't be chair. You really do have to want to hear everyone. And honestly, that will stop a lot of your repetition. If it doesn't, then you have other phrases ready, like, if it's you can also say, I believe we understand that point. Do you have anything further to offer? Like, really, you can say it nicely. You can say that nicely. Becky, I believe we understand that. Do you have something more to elaborate on? You can say those kinds of things nicely to people. You can. And you have to start doing it. Control the dominating members. There's always one or two. That can be quite difficult, and sometimes you have to say things like, now we've heard from you X a couple of times. I'm going to have to hold you while we hear from other people. Now, if you have protocols in place, this gets much, much easier to do. You can get them to stop because you're waiting for other people. Thank you, so-and-so. I hope you understand, but I just can't let you speak so long and so many times on each topic. You can't be here all bloody night. Inside voice again, right? Inside voice. But I mean, you're doing it for the good of the meeting. You're doing it for the good of the meeting. You have to find nice, polite, and sincere ways of saying these things, because these people they're important to us. they really are, I mean, I'm being facetious, but they really are important to us. Often they don't even realize what they're doing. And we want to try to guide them. But if it gets bad enough, and we know that it can, you do have to be able to say, Becky, you have interrupted Luba. Luba, go ahead, please. Like, shut Becky down if you have to. Becky, stop now, please. You've interrupted Luba. Luba, go ahead, please. Oh, did I interrupt? Like, honestly, people will do that. Oh, did I? Sometimes people don't know. They just don't know. Okay. Encourage quiet members. And you can do that kind of directly. Jane, I wonder if you'd like to share here. Would you have anything to share? Or you have to be pretty confident that you're not going to spook somebody or that person isn't too timid. But you can also do it more generally by just saying, we haven't heard from everybody. Is there anyone else who would like to offer here? So you're trying to encourage people. You also want to seek dissenting opinions. You're always looking to ensure that all perspectives are represented. In small meetings, I don't like to use, in collegial meetings, I don't like to use words like contrary, dissenting. Is there anybody speaking against this? I always like to use words like, does anybody have a concern, a caution, a red flag? If you're in a small collegial group, nobody wants to say, yes, I'm against this. But if you say, anybody have a little concern with this, you might get somebody to say, to speak up a little bit more. I find that you get a little bit better that way. And directing traffic, you're directing the traffic. So you have to be brave enough to be able to do those things. Can I just get you to hold there, please? Go ahead. Go ahead. And sometimes if you're not comfortable with saying, go ahead, please, you know what? You can just do this. Make eye contact and go like this. Thanks. But you're still directing the traffic, right? You don't have to do it the way I do it. But what you have to do is keep control of that meeting for the good of everyone else. That's what you have to do, to keep control of the meeting for everyone else, right? I think we're really close. I'm going to stop right there. Oh, I just was going to say the very last thing is, the last one there is you just have to have zero tolerance for any of those bad behaviors. And that's where it's good to be being called chair, not Becky. Because if you have to say, Becky, you need to stop this now, you can't speak like that in these meetings. You still say it nicely, but you say it really firmly. And you know what? I have a line that I say when I'm getting close, I'll say, Becky, you are getting perilously close to the line. And people know it's going to be ugly after that. Like, stop, because, don't push these people, because it's not about me, it's not about the chair, it's about how you're treating people in this meeting. So you find something that works for you, but 90% of the time our meetings are friendly and collegial. You have to be prepared for the tiny little percent of the time when they're not, because that's when you don't want to be caught off guard. Okay? Shall we stop there and see if there's... Okay, great. There's the last part is just wrap up little bits. So honestly, I think you were amazing to get through all of this. You know what? You're having a district meeting in October? October 16th. And Cheryl is doing, your chair of your board, Cheryl Lowe. Chair Lowe is doing a good chunk of it. And Cheryl used to be an ASCA instructor, so she has this cold. So you know what? Once you get started, and if you start to think of questions, Cheryl will be easily able to help you as well. Yes? In your district, I can't, because as I said, it's different throughout the province. So I would not... Right, you turn to your principal for that, because, yeah, it's different throughout the province, so. To you, thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Thank you so much.
And on behalf of the Calgary Catholic School Board, and of course everybody gathered here this evening, we wanted to say a heartfelt thank you for sharing your knowledge, your expertise, helping us to laugh, but also learn a tremendous amount through all this content. And we just feel so blessed to have had the time with you over these last number of years, and we wish you all the best in your next endeavors. And yeah, we just are so impressed and so pleased, and know that you've had a tremendous impact and an influence on all of our school councils. So thank you.
I just want to bring your attention, so difficult to come after Becky because she makes everybody laugh on difficult situations and how to do meetings. I just want to clarify a little bit around the pieces that we have the executive members here. Becky had a slide out that had the supporting the school council chair. It's so important that the executives support the school council chair, and that's why you're here. So you can hear the same messages, and so when the difficult times or difficult decisions or difficult conversations, that you're there to support her, and you're all one voice. So once the agenda is set and once it's brought to the council, it's all one voice. So the executive is always there supporting the chair, no matter what happens, right? So that's why you're here, so you can hear the same messages and remind the chair what they need to do, as per Becky. I'd like to let you know that in your packages, you have the Green District feedback sheet. You also have the Alberta School Council Association feedback sheet. If you could fill those out and then either leave them on your tables or put them in the boxes that are in the back of the room, that would be great. I'd like to also bring your attention to the new school council email list that's coming out. And Becky spoke about there has to be a process in order for you to be able to bring agenda items forward. So typically, parents will write either to the school principal or to the school council chair. So the school council chair email address is now going to be consistent throughout the district, and your principals can tell you more about it. And it's going to be the school name, for example, St. Bridget at schoolcouncil.cssd.ab.ca. So from year to year to year to year, you don't have to know who the school council chair's name because you weren't at meetings or you missed the letter or the information, but you know if you write to the school at school council that they're going to get your email and your agenda items. So please speak with your principals about that. They have more on that process. We also are having our school council chair and trustee general meeting that is specifically for all school council chairs and principals. That's the only meeting in the entire year where we have the two together. It's an important one for the board to present what is going to be happening within the district and to hear our chief superintendent as well. That's on October the 16th. You have in your packages, it's called the forum dates for all the meetings that are happening in November, January, and March. Please share those and post them with your principal on the website so all parents have those dates. And Becky already spoke to the September 30th, sending in the report on the minutes and on the financial pieces from your school councils from the year before. So with that, anytime that you have any questions, I'm available. And Tanya Slater is as well. She's the admin assistant for Area B. You can write to either one of us, but your principal is a really good resource for you at your schools. So with that, we are going to finish on time, and I'm going to ask you to join me in the closing prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Good and gracious God, your love for us is beyond measure and reaches into all areas of our lives. Continue to bless with grace and form us as leaders that we may respond to your great gift of love by extending to others the dignity, respect, and compassion you have made known to each of us. Bless all members of the school community in which we serve and help them to grow in faith. May they be eager to serve Christ and experience the joy of learning and the warmth of friendship. Bless our families and help us to lead and guide children by word and example, that they may be rooted and built up in Christ. May they be equipped for every good work and come to know the joy of life with you. Through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you very much for being here. You are fabulous. You're our heroes. You're the representatives at your schools. Thank you for your leadership, and have a wonderful evening.